Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. I was talking with a friend while I was out climbing, and my friend had a really good idea. And that idea was that I choose a listener every month or every couple of months to come on and co-host an episode with me. And I really like that idea. I really like interacting with you folks. So I think I'm going to try and get something together where once every month or once every couple of months, I have a listener or, one of you audience members pop onto the episode and co-host with me for the episode. I think that would be cool. I think that would be a fun way to interact with you guys. And I think that'll be a new interesting twist to the podcast because, like I always say, it's not about me, it's about we. So if we could interact that way as well, I think that would be really a cool idea. Now, how I'll do that and how I'll decide who co-hosts with me, I don't really know. I haven't gotten that far yet, but I think the idea itself is pretty rad. I really like that idea, and I really like interacting with my listeners. So I think that we're going to put something like that into effect moving forward and see how it works out. And if the audience, if you folks like it, then maybe we'll do it, maybe once a week or something. Who knows? But we'll figure it out. And I think it'll be a cool way to interact with the audience and a little bit of me giving back to the audience as well, right? For somebody who might want to pop onto the podcast and chat with the other listeners, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you folks have been so incredibly supportive of my product and what I'm doing here, and how we're breaking I shouldn't even say breaking, how we're covering the story of Jeffrey Epstein on a daily basis. And not only just the support for the GoFundMe, which is only $600 away from its goal at this point, but the actual time invested into the podcast from you, the audience, is it's huge, and it's really humbling. And I really appreciate each and every one of you out there, and all of you who email me all the time, and the people that I interact with on Twitter. It's just, I want to give back a little bit and maybe, show you folks my appreciation for you. So I think the idea of having a listener pop on and co-host with me after we do some sort of, I don't know how we'll get there, right? Maybe we'll do some kind of drawing, or I don't know. I haven't gotten that far. But I think the idea on its face is pretty damn cool, and I know that a lot of the listeners out there would love to pop on for 15, 20, 30 minutes, and maybe even I'll have you pop on and read an article. How about that? We'll figure it out one way or the other, right? But I just wanted to let all of you know that I am thinking of ways to involve you more, and for the show to be more interactive between me and the listeners and the audience out there, because the audience has been growing by the day, and it's really impossible for me to reach out to each and every person like I used to do when we had a very small audience. I just don't have the time. I'd love to reach out to everybody when they subscribe to the podcast, or when they email me. I try my best to return all of the emails, but I just have a lot of them at this point. So as the show continues to grow, I'm looking for new ways to be interactive with you folks and to show my appreciation to you, because it's a two-way street, right? Without you folks listening and passing on the information and getting your friends to tune in, I'd just be sitting around in the backyard like usual, yapping at my dad and my friends, which is fine with me, by the way. As I've said a million times on this podcast, I never expected to have more than, 1,000 downloads, to be honest with you. And I never expected to have to do a podcast every single day to cover this case. I never expected any of this. So I'm just an average guy like most of you, right? I'm not a trained journalist. I went to school for political science. That's what I went to college for. And my applicable experiences are in the entertainment industry and in sports gaming, aka / finance. So I never had any goals of sitting around and becoming a podcaster and a guy that's, an independent content creator or independent journalist, whatever you want to call it. I'm just a guy sitting around in his pajamas who was pissed off about the corruption at first. And after you dive into the story, well, it became a whole different thing for me, right? Of course, it's still the corruption angle, but when you hear the stories of the survivors, how you cannot be pushed into action is beyond me. So I never really expected the podcast to blow up like this. Me and my partner Lee, who, if you listen to the first few episodes, we were doing a weekly show together. We never marketed this. We never pumped it. We never did anything. And up until recently, a couple of months ago, I didn't even have a Twitter account for the podcast. And the only reason I created that is because some of the audience members asked me to, so that we can interact more. And like I said, this is still a learning process for me. I'm not the be-all, end-all of podcasters, anything like that. I'm still finding my way. But what I can tell you, what I can promise you, is that we're going to be on top of the news in the Jeffrey Epstein case, and we're going to be reading between the lines on a regular basis here on this podcast. So if you're a new listener and you're just joining us for the first time or the first couple of times and you're just trying to find your balance here within the Jeffrey Epstein show and within the universe here, well, my suggestion is start at the very beginning. Start at episode 0 and go through all of the daily drops, because this is one hell of a story. And I can't even tell you how much I've been helped along the way from you, the listeners. So, like I said, I want to give back to you folks. I want you folks to be able to be involved and to have you come onto the podcast, co-host with me, read some of your emails on the podcast. I want to start moving in that direction for sure and making it a lot more interactive between me and you, the listeners. So shoot me some emails and let me know what you think about that idea, and let me know if you think that's a good idea, something you folks are interested in. And like I said, I'm still finding my way here. I'm not a professional broadcast guy or a podcaster even. I'm just some guy that hangs out in his spare room that's turned into a studio, and who is absolutely, positively sick and tired of the games being played. So shoot me some emails and let me know what you folks think. Let me know if you think it's a good idea, and we'll rock and roll, because I'm looking for ways to give back to this audience and to let this audience know that I most certainly appreciate them, not just for listening to the podcast, by the way, but for all of their hard-ass work on the behalf of these survivors and on the behalf of what is right. Because without everybody out there who is listening, putting the pressure on these people, none of this would have been possible. We would have been at the same place we were at when Virginia first came forward, when Maria in the 90s first came forward and ratted these sons of bitches out. We would have never had any movement if it wasn't for you folks going absolutely batshit crazy over this. And I'll tell you what, I most certainly salute each and every one of you, because it is about us. Not me, it is about we. And we are all a piece of the moving parts that make this machine well-oiled and make it roll forward towards justice. So, keep it going, folks. That's all I can say is keep up the pressure and keep it going. All right, so today's article is from the New York Post. And it was originally a Reuters article, but the New York Post reran it. And the headline, no, Bill Gates didn't repeatedly visit Jeffrey Epstein's island. So right off the bat, it looks like a puff piece for Bill Gates, right? Reuters is like, oh, well, we have to come out and we have to defend Bill Gates because how dare anyone attack Mr. Gates? He's such a great man. Meanwhile, we all know that he was hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein after Epstein's conviction. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, he was on the island for sure. I know that. Because as you all know here on the podcast, I don't run anything that I cannot vet and that I cannot prove. Anything that has not been printed in the legacy media, anything that has not been put out in court papers. Now, I might have suspicions and I might be researching things that I don't talk about here on the podcast, but the format here is to stay exactly on target and stay within the boundaries of the legacy media's own reporting. That way, they can never come back and look at us and say, oh, you're talking about Alex Jones level conspiracy theories. Well, that bullshit ain't happening here on this podcast. We're talking about your cover-up, and the fact of the matter is, all you have to do is go back and read the articles that you and your colleagues have published, and you'll see. Because Bill Gates while he might not have been on the island a bunch of times like some people say he has, and I'm not saying that they are wrong either, by the way. I can't confirm one way or the other how many times, or if at all, Bill Gates has been on this island. Now, I'm working to confirm it one way or the other, but like everything else in this case, it is very convoluted and it is very, very layered. So it takes a lot of time, and that's what they were banking on, and that's how this whole entire thing was set up, so that it would take a lot of legwork to untangle it. All right, so this article was authored by Reuters, so I'm guessing just the staff, and it was, like I said, the New York Post is rerunning it. Viral claims circulating on social media claim that billionaire philanthropist Bill Gates has traveled to Jeffrey Epstein's island multiple times. While Gates and Epstein had met in the past, this claim, based on flight logs recently subpoenaed, is untrue. So, again, let's read between the lines. This claim, based on flight logs recently subpoenaed, is untrue. What they're saying is the claim that's based on those flight logs might be untrue. But what about other evidence? What about other trips? What about the fact that Gates might have went there on his own plane? We don't know any of that. None of that has been released. There's nobody coming out talking about that yet. But of course, Reuters has to jump in right away with their great fact checkers. How'd they do on the whole entire Russiagate? Nonsense, by the way. And these guys have to come out with their fact checking right away to defend their buddy Bill Gates. It's so gross. It is so damn gross. Here's an idea. Here's a really good idea. Why doesn't Reuters spend some of their capital, spend some of their money, and do a deep dive into Bill Gates and his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein? Why aren't they asking why Bill Gates was hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein in 2013? That's the question that should be asked. They shouldn't be running to his defense over rumors that he went to the island, because as you'll see here, well, he's going to say he didn't go to the Palm Beach property in a different article that we're going to read right after this. But in this article, it says that he had never been there. It's just such a joke. They contradict themselves in these articles right and left. And if we don't do these articles the way that we do and cover them the way that we do, there's no way that we'd be able to follow all of this the way it should be followed, because the media has no desire to ever follow up on articles that they post. One example reads, flight records confirm that Bill Gates went to Epstein's child sex trafficking island 17 times. It's a fact, not a theory. And that kind of stuff is ridiculous as well. Anyone who's posting, it's a fact, not a theory, or this person is involved in this, or this person's involved in that, and they don't have receipts, and they don't have evidence, and they don't even have, any sort of circumstantial evidence, well, I look at those people as disinformation agents. So anytime I see somebody claiming that they have some inside information in this case and they don't have anything to back it up, I am automatically skeptical. And that goes for both sides of the argument. So while I don't know if Bill Gates went to this island, I don't know one way or the other for sure if he was ever on the island. What I do know is people that are out here talking about, oh, he was there 17 times, it's a fact, not a theory, without providing evidence. Those kind of people are very harmful for what's going on in this case. Following his arrest on July 6, 2019, financier, pedophile, that Reuters is still calling him a financier, folks. Are you kidding me right now? Jeffrey Epstein pleaded not guilty to sex trafficking charges involving dozens of underage girls at his mansions on Manhattan's Upper East Side and in Palm Beach, Florida. He had escaped federal prosecution by pleading guilty in 2008 to Florida state prostitution charges, an agreement now widely considered too lenient. Epstein was found dead in his jail cell on August 10, 2019. Again, the financier. The pedophile once counted President Trump, former President Bill Clinton, and Britain's Prince Andrew as friends. They have not been accused of any criminal wrongdoing. That's wrong. Prince Andrew was accused of criminal wrongdoing by Virginia Roberts. Why don't you state that in your article, Reuters? Reuters is part of the problem, folks. They're one of the worst. They are one of the worst legacy media outlets out there. Straight trash reporting. They don't dig even an inch below the surface, and they run narratives. That's all they do is run narratives. It's such a gross, gross outlet. The private planes used by Epstein to travel to his island in the Caribbean, Little St. James in the U.S. Virgin Islands, has been referred to in the media as the Lolita Express, following the accusations of him trafficking minors. I don't even like to refer to it as that. How about just the gross-ass plane that these gross-ass, disgusting animals flew on? The Lolita Express. Why are we going to give it any kind of flavor, right? There's nothing cool about Jeffrey Epstein. There's nothing cool about the way he lived his life. There's nothing cool about the people he hung out with. And there's certainly nothing cool about the things he was involved in, all right? So let's not try and, give his plane a cool name, all right? Let's just call it the piece of shit's plane. In July 2019, the New York Times reported that the pilots that flew Epstein's private planes, including to his island in the Caribbean, had released records of flight logs, including names of those who had traveled on the planes. So again, that's very informative, right? The flight logs are very important, but it's not the be-all end-all. We know that there's more documentation to be released, and we know that there's more flight logs to be released. So for Reuters to jump in with both feet here and declare that this is not true without having all of the evidence, because we know that Reuters has not done more than a casual look at what's going on here, for them to jump in with both feet and declare that, oh, this is a fact, this is not true, it's such a joke to me. It's such a joke to me that these legacy media outlets honestly believe that anybody is buying their bullshit anymore. Do any of you out there look at Reuters and say, well, Reuters fact-checked it, I can move on, I don't have to do my own research? Of course not. Nobody looks at the legacy media like that, especially outlets like Reuters. Copies of these flight logs can be seen online, uploaded by Gawker.com and factcheck.org. Reuters found no mention of Bill Gates in the first collection of flight logs and only one instance in the second. The log shows Bill Gates noted as a passenger on March 1st, 2013 from Teterboro Airport in New Jersey to Palm Beach International Airport, Florida, not to Little St. James. So that's not a big deal? It's only a big deal if he goes to Little St. James. That's the only place people were abused. Breaking news, Reuters. Palm Beach was a hellhole, an absolute house of horrors where Jeffrey Epstein abused underage girls and girls of age. Okay? So it's okay that Bill Gates flew down there? And why is he flying on Epstein's plane anyway? Doesn't Bill Gates have his own jet? Why are you on Epstein's plane? The same thing I asked about Trump. What was Trump doing on Epstein's plane that one time that they have him on the log? You have your own plane, bro. If you and this dude aren't so close, why are you flying on his plane? These are the questions that have to be asked. The legacy media does not want to do their job. So here we are, once again, picking up the slack and filling in the holes. A screenshot circulating on some media reports replicates this log entry in 2013. The New York Times corroborated this single trip to Florida and reported that Bill Gates' spokeswoman said Mr. Gates, who has his own $40 million jet, hadn't been aware it was Mr. Epstein's plane. Such bullshit. So Bill Gates just gets on anybody's plane, just, shows up at the airport, at the private docking area of the airport, and says, yeah, I'm going to get on this plane. I don't know whose it is, but it's going to Palm Beach, right? Yeah, I'm going to get on. It's such bullshit. He knew he was getting on Epstein's plane, and he doesn't want to cop to it because he doesn't want to create more of a firestorm around his relationship with the son of a bitch. But I got news for you, Mr. Gates, all right? You are also on the clock. The Times reported that Bill Gates had met with Epstein multiple times. This was after Epstein had been convicted of past sex crimes. The Times reported that beginning in 2011, Mr. Gates met with Mr. Epstein on numerous occasions, and employees of Mr. Gates' foundation also paid multiple visits to Mr. Epstein's mansion. Exchanges were recorded and reported by the newspaper, including possible philanthropic collaboration. Oh, well, that's all good then, right? Because it was all about charity. It was all about charity. Bill Gates, one of the richest men in the world, needs Jeffrey Epstein to chip in for his charities. Bill Gates, the man giving away billions all the time, can't fork over his own dough for the charity, huh? Had to have Jeffrey Epstein's money. Had to have that dirty-ass, disgusting pedophile money, huh? Bill Gates. For Reuters to come out and defend this guy and to act like, well, he never went to that Caribbean island, so how dare you bring up Bill Gates' name? It's disgusting, it's gross, and Reuters, well, I won't even tell you what I feel about Reuters. To claim, however, that Gates visited Epstein's island multiple times is baseless. Reuters was unable to find any flight logs corroborating this allegation. It appears Gates flew on an aircraft of Epstein's once, but this was to Florida. A spokesperson for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation confirmed to Reuters via email that this claim is untrue. False. While Gates had met with Epstein, flight logs disprove he visited Epstein's Caribbean island multiple times. That's Reuters telling you to pack it in, folks. That's Reuters telling me to stop investigating. They have it all under control. They've done such a good job with this case from the very beginning that you and I should just step back and not worry about what's going on, because the professionals in the legacy media, they're on the case. They're going to make sure that all this shit goes down right, and they're going to do a proper investigation this time. Man, shut up. Shut up. Nobody believes you, Reuters. You're a garbage outlet. You do garbage work. And the fact that you're coming to defend Jeffrey Epstein right here, right now, by via defending Bill Gates is gross. Straight up gross. And what we're going to do is now, it says here that Bill Gates visited the Palm Beach mansion once, right? According to this flight log, he was there one time. Well, we have another article from The Verge where he denies ever even going to Palm Beach. So which is it, Mr. Gates? Were you there or weren't you there? We're going to read the second article right now so that you have perspective, so that you have context, and so that you know that Reuters is lying to you. They only want to fact check the narrative that they want to fact check. They should be fact checking the whole entire thing. But, of course, they don't. So, we're going to do it for them. All right, so this article is from The Verge, and in this article, you'll see that Bill Gates denies that he even ever went to Palm Beach. Meanwhile, in the new Reuters article, it clearly states that at least one time he was on Jeffrey Epstein's plane and flew to Palm Beach. So what should we believe? What should we believe? Should we just believe Reuters? Should we believe Bill Gates? Isn't it Reuters' job to really do a deep dive into all of this shit before they dip their toes into it? Because now they look like a bunch of morons. I know it's obvious they always look like a bunch of morons, but even more so at this point. All right, so let's check out this article from The Verge. TheVerge.com. Headline, Bill Gates had a closer relationship with Jeffrey Epstein than he admitted, the New York Times reports. Epstein was involved with the Gates personally and his namesake foundation. This article was published on October 12th, and the author is Elizabeth Lopato. Nice Italian young lady, huh? All right, so Bill Gates, the co-founder of Microsoft and chairman of its board until 2014, was among the powerful men who spent a meaningful amount of time with the sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, according to reporting from the New York Times. Employees of the Gates Namesake Foundation reportedly also met with Epstein in multiple visits to the disgraced financier's mansion. Pedophile, you mean? And it's obvious what's going on here. Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein built a relationship after Jeffrey Epstein was arrested. Okay, that's a fact. You want to fact check something, Reuters? Fact check that. It's also a fact that Bill Gates spent a lot more time with Epstein than he let on. Okay? Now, as far as the island goes, Reuters is 100% sure that he's never been there. Me, on the other hand, I am not so sure. Now, we don't have the evidence that he's been there, right? I haven't seen that evidence come across my desk, that's for sure. But I have not had anything conclusively telling me he hasn't been there. So I'm willing to wait and see, unlike Reuters, who you would think, these people went to journalism school, they had, a bunch of money, an editor, blah, blah, blah. You would think that they would be on the right path, but once again, they are not. Previously, Gates had told the Wall Street Journal that he didn't have a business relationship or friendship with Epstein. I met him, Gates told the Journal on September 10th. I didn't have any business relationship or friendship with him. Now here's what's important, folks. Listen to this, okay? You ready? I didn't go to New Mexico or Florida or Palm Beach or any of that. There were people around him who were saying, hey, if you want to raise money for global health and get more philanthropy, he knows a lot of rich people. Now, what did we just hear in the article from Reuters? He had never been to the Palm Beach mansion, I thought. The article in Reuters said he had been there one time, right? That's where the flight was from, Teterboro to Palm Beach. And also, what plane was he on? Was he on the Disgustoids plane? I bet he was, folks. I bet he was. And if Reuters was worth their weight in salt, they'd actually do a deep dive into this. But they're garbage. They're trash. And guess what? I just accept that at this point. I accept the fact that they're never going to tell us the real story. And I also accept the fact that anytime I read anything or hear anything on TV, that it's up to me to vet that and fact check it to make sure that it's true. How pathetic that we have to fact check the news organizations because they have little to no integrity. In the New York Times article, a spokeswoman for Gates declined to say how many times the pair had met. The paper's reporting show that Gates met with Epstein numerous times, including at least 3 times at Epstein's townhouse. His lifestyle is very different and kind of intriguing, although it would not work for me, Gates wrote in a 2011 email to colleagues. His spokeswoman says he was referring only to the unique decor of the Epstein residence. That's what he meant, huh? When he said lifestyle, just the decor. What a bunch of bullshit. And the fact that these outlets don't ever call Bill Gates out on this shit is so absurd. All right? It is absolutely absurd, and I will not stand for it. I personally will not stand for it. And Bill Gates, you are certainly on the clock, my friend. You are certainly on the clock because you have some answering to do. We've proven you to be a liar just in these 2 articles. A guy in his studio, in his home, in his pajamas, is doing harder legwork than Reuters. Chew on that for a minute, folks. Bill Gates regrets ever meeting with Epstein and recognizes it was an error in judgment to do so. Reading in between the lines, what he means is he regrets that he was ever caught being friends with Jeffrey Epstein. He doesn't regret the relationship itself, folks. Let's be real. His spokeswoman told the New York Times, Gates recognizes that entertaining Epstein's ideas related to philanthropy gave Epstein an undeserved platform that was at odds with Gates' personal values and the values of his foundation. No, it wasn't. Bill Gates is just another dirtbag, in my opinion, another scummy son of a bitch thief who cheated his way to the top and crapped on the people below him to get there. He's not some American victory story, okay? Just another piece of garbage, in my opinion. Sorry. The Gates Foundation has committed $1 billion to gender equality. Melinda Gates, Bill's wife and co-chair of the Gates Foundation, has said $1 billion is only a small fraction of what's necessary. The foundation has often touted its commitment to women and girls. Yeah, of course they have. That's their cover story, right? Oh, we give out so much money to women and girls, we would never hang out with Jeffrey Epstein. So they use it as their shield, as their armor. But guess what? We see through their bullshit now. That story, that cover, worked for as long as the media was able to run their narrative. They are no longer able to do so because of you, folks. All because of you. In 2011, Gates instructed a team to meet Epstein at his townhouse to discuss philanthropic fundraising, and the New York Times reports. Epstein told the people there that his conviction for soliciting prostitution from an underage girl was no worse than stealing a bagel, according to 2 people who were there. So this is the kind of This is the kind of stuff that Jeffrey Epstein would say around Bill Gates' people, around Bill Gates' associates, and probably around Bill Gates himself. And yet Bill Gates was still meeting with him, still trying to get money from him, still working with him. I don't care what you're working on. There is no reason for a man like Bill Gates to be associating with a pedophile like Jeffrey Epstein. The 2 remained in contact, and at one point in 2013, Gates flew on Epstein's jet from New Jersey to Palm Beach, Florida, according to a flight manifest. So there you go. Bill Gates is a liar. We've already proved it in 2 articles, folks. That's the whole reason I'm reading the second article, to provide context for the first. Would it really be that hard for Reuters to add that into their article? No, they're too busy gaslighting you. They're too busy with their bullshit. Gates spokeswoman claims Gates, who owns his own private jet, didn't know it was Epstein's plane. Though the relationship between Gates and Epstein apparently cooled off after 2014, the Gates Foundation remained in contact with Epstein through 2017. According to today's reporting, 2 members of Gates' inner circle served as intermediaries between Gates and Epstein. One, Melanie Walker, met Epstein after she graduated from college in 1992. She moved to New York, where she stayed in a building owned by Epstein. She also worked for Epstein in 1998 as a science advisor after graduating from medical school. She joined the Gates Foundation in 2006, and I believe that is the neurosurgeon that Epstein had for Prince Andrew. You see how the circles all interconnect? You see how the spider web is weaved, folks? And if you're not on your shit, if you're not on your game, and you take one day off covering this case, you will be left behind. That was where she met Boris Nikolic, who was the Gates Foundation science advisor. She introduced him to Epstein. Nikolic, who now runs a venture capital firm, was named as a fallback executor to Epstein's will. He has declined to do so in court proceedings. Gates is an investor in Nikolic's firm. According to the New York Times, Nikolic says, "I deeply regret ever meeting Epstein." No, you don't. You regret being outed. You regret people knowing that you met Epstein. And furthermore, if him and Boris Nikolic weren't so close, if they didn't have a strong relationship, why would he add him as an executor? Khan and Indike were very close to Epstein. We know that Indike was his house lawyer, and we know Khan was attached to him at the hip. So if Nikolic wasn't a valued member of Jeffrey Epstein's operation, of Jeffrey Epstein's inner circle, why was he also named an executor? Was that too much for Reuters to ask? Too much for them to delve a little deeper? Or too busy just running their fact-check counter-narrative bullshit? You see, folks, the legacy media has failed you. The Fourth Estate has lost its way. And every single time they come out with one of these bullshit stories and they attempt to lie to you in this case, you can guarantee that I will be right here on the Jeffrey Epstein Show to read in between the lines and to call them out on their utter bullshit. If you'd like to contact me, you could do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All right, folks, I'll be back later on tonight with the Daily Drop. It'll be later than usual due to UFC being on, but it will be tonight. All right, everybody, I hope you all have an amazing day.